there's many models that exist in the world, but today they all live in these sort of isolated silos, and that creates a kind of dampened innovation curve. It creates some sort of suboptimal market outcomes in AI. I can't easily take 10 AI models, stitch them all together, and create a new model that is the sum of the intelligences of these underlying models. And I think the future is not one of a single dominant model that is best in every domain or context.
GM, and welcome to BlockHunters Voices, Ep.5. My name is Joachim Vuju, and I'm your host for today. BlockHunters Voices is a platform where we explore the journeys, stories, and insights of blockchain innovators and leaders, as well as the technologies driving their projects. Today, we have here with us Nick Emmons, CEO of Allora, with us. Nick's career is quite interesting because he moved from working on NFT appraisals at Upshot to now leading Allora, a cutting-edge AI network. We'll chat about his journey and what Allora is bringing to the table and how AI and crypto are coming together to open up new opportunities. Welcome, Nick. How
Thanks
are
for
you?
having me. Good. How are you?
I'm very good and very excited.
Nice.
Let's get
Me
started.
too.
Let's go back to the start, Nick. Can you tell us a bit about your career journey prior to launching your startup?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I first found out about crypto, blockchain, sort of like 2014-ish. I remember immediately kind of like being captivated by the potential of this type of technology and sort of redefining critical power structures in the world, and the sort of implications that has in so many different domains or industries. And immediately before founding Upshot, I was leading blockchain development at one of the larger asset managers and insurance companies in the US and Canada, parts of Asia, called John Hancock. Manulife is the brand internationally. And there we were doing some of the earlier work in enterprise with regard to public blockchain development, when a lot of institutions were still focused on private blockchains, DLTs, etc. We were doing work around kind of decentralized risk hedging or exploring decentralized insurance systems in a kind of public blockchain setting. So that's what I was up to prior to Upshot / Allora.
It's very interesting that, and I'm very curious that, did you have any mentors that impacted your career decisions and getting into blockchain?
I don't know if I had many mentors. I'd say there's one person that maybe influenced my sort of worldview more than others. Maybe the only person I would ever like consider a mentor per se, who was like a fairly acclaimed economist, game theorist, who did a lot of like early work with some of the kind of earlier researchers in game theory, like Harsani, Nash, Kenneth Arrow, etc. And a lot of how he helped me kind of shape my worldview around how different coordination mechanisms can drive different economic behaviors in different domains, how we can construct market behaviors or market structures rather, such that we can apply market type mechanisms to a broader set of society's critical functions. Shaped a lot of how I thought about like tangible means of enacting really like widespread or large scale change in the world, how we can move on a path towards markets or financial markets being a more ubiquitous and de facto means of coordination across things that we would typically not think of as being kind of suitable or compatible with markets. And that's, like I said, shaped a lot of my worldview. I see a lot of my focus in the world, a lot of the things where we did with Upshot, a lot of stuff we're doing with Allora, as being on a sort of trajectory towards making more efficient market environments such that we can turn more things into financial assets or financial markets, use markets as, like I said, a more ubiquitous coordination mechanism in the world. Because markets are the best coordination mechanism that's ever existed. It's just that the means of interacting with them, the participants that have historically interacted with them, are sometimes too inefficient for markets to be compatible so ubiquitously.
And also, I think that a lot of people don't actually have a clue how markets work.
That's right too. Yeah. Yeah.
So before we dive into the details of Allora, could you explain the shift from Upshot to Allora, a modular AI network?
Yeah. So when we started Upshot, we were, even before the NFT appraisal stuff, we were really interested in this problem of sort of subjective consensus. How do we leverage various game theoretic mechanisms or coordination mechanisms to incentivize disparate actors in some network setting to reach consensus on the resolutions to subjective questions? This is a really difficult problem. You could categorize this as like the Oracle problem more generally, I think. And a lot of the work we had done was centered around this really new field of mechanism design at the time called peer prediction, which leverages information theory in pretty interesting ways to incentivize people to reveal subjective answers to questions honestly in an informed way. And so what we then ended up building with that is this kind of crowdsourced platform for appraising and pricing different long tail assets, NFTs at the time. Because NFTs, long tail assets, they don't change hands frequently enough for the open market or these transfers of ownership to be a suitable source of price discovery and exclusivity. And oftentimes, as we see in sort of the traditional world, things like real estate, physical art, other things like that, leverage heavily this use of external expert opinions around price to supplement the market's notion of what a different type of illiquid asset is worth. And what you can do once you start tapping into a more efficient source of price discovery for long tail assets is now you can take this primitive or this artifact of the price feed and use that to build entire new kind of universes of more expressive financial infrastructure for assets that were historically incompatible with a lot of derivative infrastructure. With a price feed, with a near real-time price feed for a low velocity asset like an NFT, now you can start building more efficient lending markets. You can start building interesting kind of synthetic instruments or perpetual instruments. And so a lot of our work had been, like I said before, built around this idea of creating more efficiency in historically illiquid markets. And what we found in that first iteration of this kind of crowdsourced appraisal platform was that humans are just really inefficient actors in a network like this. We had humans sort of manually revealing their opinions or beliefs around the value of different assets. It was very inefficient. It led to inaccuracy. And so towards the beginning of 2021, we shifted our focus to building models ourselves for pricing these things. Models can price a much, much larger number of assets with far greater levels of accuracy. And so we saw an almost immediate step level type improvement or step function level improvement in how accurate different prices could be made, how frequently we could reprice assets, the number of assets we could price, and start to more practically realize our vision of creating real-time price feeds for even the most illiquid or inefficient assets that exist. And then that's sort of what led into the Allora stuff. We sort of took what we had learned over the past 3 years in building some of the earlier AI-powered crypto infrastructure, in combination with that really early work we did around subjective consensus mechanisms, and sort of combine them to create this network where we could incentivize different AI models to learn off of one another and collectively optimize different ML objectives, creating this source of decentralized collective intelligence, which we're building with Allora.
Thank you for that. And what are the primary objectives of Allora? And what main improvements does it aim to achieve over traditional AI models?
Yeah, I think in short, the core problem we're trying to solve with Allora is this really fundamental problem in AI today, which is siloed machine intelligence. There's many models that exist in the world, but today they all live in these sort of isolated silos, and that creates a kind of dampened innovation curve. It creates some sort of suboptimal market outcomes in AI. I can't easily take 10 AI models, stitch them all together, and create a new model that is the sum of the intelligences of these underlying models. And I think the future is not one of a single dominant model that is best in every domain or context. The future is going to increasingly be one where there are many different models, some being good in some domains, some being good in other domains. And in that world, I think it's really critical to have some sort of intelligence coordination network where different models can contribute to this shared source of collective intelligence, learn off of one another, create a sort of networked intelligence that outperforms any of the individual models within that network. And then what you get at the kind of other end of that in Allora is this kind of abstraction layer for intelligence. So instead of users or developers or companies needing to constantly be evaluating the entire universe of models and integrating specific models in things they build or in things they're trying to do, now you can just tap into this kind of marketplace for intelligence that is Allora and be confident that the best possible output as a function of all of these models coordinating in a productive way is going to be given to you. And so that's sort of what we're trying to solve with Allora fundamentally, is that problem of siloed machine intelligence.
So basically, in simple terms, it's like a community of AI actors.
Basically, yeah. We're building an intelligence marketplace where people with useful models or useful instances of artificial intelligence will get rewarded proportional to how good their model is relative to other models in the network.
Okay, what are the key features that differentiate Allora from other decentralized AI networks or even traditional centralized AI solutions rather than the marketplace that you already told me about?
So I think from my perspective, there's a few kind of distinct layers of the decentralized AI stack. It's still coming together. It's still a nascent category, but from my perspective today, there's sort of four core layers of the AI stack. I think there's data, there's compute, there's intelligence, and there's execution. And I think different projects, different pieces of infrastructure are trying to tackle different layers of this stack. Obviously, there's a lot of compute networks out there that are trying to aggregate excess GPU compute towards the training and inference and running of inference of different models. There's networks emerging to better provision data at scale or better label or structure data at scale. There's networks that support the decentralized execution of models more tangibly. And I think we're trying to really live in this intelligence layer of the stack and then develop really close technical integrations with projects building in other layers of the stack. My general philosophy is that when you're building a decentralized network, you're already taking on the sort of Herculean effort of trying to coordinate many different actors towards completing some action. It's already really difficult and complex in itself. And when you try to build monolithically and incentivize or coordinate many heterogeneous actors to complete many heterogeneous tasks, that complexity compounds quite quickly. And so the design compromises you make have to be very material as well. I think that's why we've seen the blockchain stack move to a kind of modular architecture. I think that's a meaningful factor why we've seen things like DeFi accelerate so quickly, is because these things are broken down into tightly scoped, highly modular, composable pieces of a stack that then get brought together to realize a kind of end-to-end vision of some broader stack or broader category. So that's how we think about like the AI stack and where we fit inside of it as well.
But how do you ensure data privacy and security for the participants in the network?
So when people are running models in the Allora network, they're only sharing the ultimate inference that comes from that model. They don't have to reveal any information about the structure of the model, the type of the model they're running, the data that's gone into training that model. And so, sort of by definition or fundamentally, data can be kept private via this means. It's the same way sort of we think of like we see federated learning take place at scale. Whereas people are fine-tuning models locally and then sharing the fine-tuned model, the sort of ultimate model, and that enables them to keep the underlying data that went into fine-tuning it private. The same thing happens here, just a different level of abstraction. And that people can have closed sourced or open source models, open or closed data sets contributing to the kind of training or improvement of those models on the network. And all they're ultimately sharing with other participants in the network is the inference that comes from that. And so data is sort of intrinsically kept private in that kind of definition of privacy.
Yeah, really makes sense. And thank you for the detailed overview of Allora.
Yeah.
And moving on to recent updates, and congrats on the V2 testnet launch that launched almost a month ago. Can you share us an update on its performance and any challenges you faced during this phase?
Yeah, so V2 testnet has been a really great kind of, I guess, like step of progress for us. Also, there's been a lot of learnings that came from it. I don't have the exact numbers right now, but as of earlier this week, we had about 11,000 workers running on the network. Workers are people running models on the network, which is quite impressive. I think it shows this interest and want to run these kind of models and contribute to a collective intelligence network of this kind. Also, with the V2 testnet, we introduced a bunch of meaningful improvements into how the sort of contextual awareness of the network works. We don't have to go super deep into it right now, but that is sort of the key mechanism or the key piece that enables the network's aggregate output to consistently outperform any of the individual models within the network, creating this sort of paradigm where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The network level inference is better or more intelligent than any of the individual inferences in the network. And so V2 testnet has brought a lot of those mechanisms in to the network, has enabled us to do a lot of experimentation around sort of contextual awareness of the network, which is, like I said, is kind of the core piece of creating collective intelligence, I think. And then I think one thing we've learned through this process is we were caught a little bit off guard by the scale of demand of people wanting to run models on the network. So some different infrastructural pieces we had in place, we saw sort of buckle under that weight. And so we've been making some updates to how like node architecture is sort of coordinated, how many nodes can be running on the network, these worker nodes specifically, to better handle that load now that we have a better sense of kind of the tangible demand for running worker nodes in the network. And we've made those improvements. The engineering team has been working really hard on that. And it's actually an upgrade to introduce those improvements into the network is going live as we're doing this right now. So that should be hopefully in the network over the next few days.
It's very interesting what you've told me about the workers, because on Twitter I've seen that Allora is very engaged with a diverse group of participants, from data scientists to developers to validators and reporters. I mean, it's not the usual community. It's a more smart community, so to say. And what opportunities and benefits can these contributors expect to gain from their involvement?
I think one interesting thing about decentralized networks generally is that they enable us to create more specific market environments for more like the provisioning of more specific or nebulous resources. This is an example I use a lot, but I think like Bitcoin is commoditized energy, right? And it in its existence, it has created the shortest path possible for someone having access to some excess power or energy and capturing value from it. Other networks turn other resources into more kind of tangible digital commodities. They incentivize or create short paths of having access to some resource and capturing value from it. When we're building a collective intelligence network, essentially an intelligence marketplace that is turning intelligence as a research into some more tangible digital commodity. What we're doing is we're creating the shortest path possible from someone having some useful insight or some performant model into value. today, if you have some useful model, the path to capturing value from that model is often quite long and it's indirect. You're either, if it's a financial model or a set of financial models, you're going out, you're raising capital, you're setting up all this infrastructure to set up a fund. Maybe you have capital yourself and you're deploying it through that means. If it's a model that is meant to be productized or be sold to consumers or businesses, you now have to productize that model, build distribution channels, build business functions, etc. What we enable is this almost new sort of AI company to emerge, where people who are good at building models can now capture value from that model by just contributing to this decentralized source of collective intelligence. It creates the shortest path possible from having a performant model and capturing value from it by simply just hooking it up to the network.
So they don't have to do BD stuff, sales, customer service, and building the whole company. They just attach their good product to you, and they can start
Exactly.
earning, right?
Yeah, Allora becomes a sort of distribution channel. It is a market for intelligence. So it enables people that are especially skilled in creating good models or good instances of artificial intelligence and just focusing on that and still being able to capture value from it.
Exactly. And also, you guys introduced some innovative strategies like AI powered prediction markets on various topics from presidential elections to pancake swap campaigns. Could you provide a brief overview of how this work and how others can get involved?
For sure. I think starting with the pancake swap prediction market, just because it's a little more accessible, how the pancake swap prediction markets work is it's essentially like a constantly recurring prediction market where every 20 minutes, prediction market participants on pancake swap are essentially betting on whether the price of some asset relative to some other asset, in this case ETH/USD, is going to be higher or lower than it is right now in 20 minutes. And what we're doing with PancakeSwap is, instead of it being humans against humans in this kind of prediction market, where some humans are saying yes, it's going to be higher, some humans are saying no, it's going to be lower, and the odds being discovered that way, the specific topics, which are basically like different clusters of models on Allora, are contributing price predictions about what the price of ETH/USD is going to be in that time frame, and then participants in the PancakeSwap AI prediction market are betting with or against the AI. So they're saying this cluster of models is correct in its prediction, or this cluster of models is incorrect in this prediction. And the way it should work out is, if the AI is correct most of the time, the odds of betting with or against the AI should reflect that over time as well. If the AI tends to be correct most of the time, you'll more consistently win by betting with the AI, but it'll be a lower payout than if you bet against the AI, because there's a less likely chance of that occurring because the AI is right most of the time. And so that's how that prediction market works. And then I think I think prediction markets in general are a really exciting vertical for AI, because prediction markets are obviously these really long tail, hyper long tail markets that often only exist for defined periods of time. And that's, I think, what's led to a lot of the illiquidity in most prediction markets, because it's so expensive to sort of manually discern what a correct probability of some like more long tail event is, turning that into like a executed trade. Humans are just inefficient at this. But AI is the most deflationary technology to ever exist. It can process massive amounts of information really efficiently, and in doing so, be able to participate in a much broader set of these long tail markets profitably. And so the one agent that's been built on top of Allora for trading in the political prediction markets that are live on Polymarket for predicting the US election winner later this year have brought together different models that aggregate different kind of macroeconomic factors, socioeconomic factors, different key issues that contribute to the likelihood of one candidate winning over the other. And then those models are being kind of stitched together via the underlying Allora inference synthesis mechanism. And that's being used to actually trade in these kind of polymarket political prediction markets. And I think this is the first step in realizing this much broader and more exciting design space of having the kind of de facto participant in prediction markets be AI, not humans, because that enables participants to to interact with these markets far more efficiently and with far higher levels of accuracy, granularity, etc.
It's very interesting what you've said, and I want to get back a little to the community side because,
Mm-hmm.
as I've told earlier, you have a smart community. But how did you build this strong community around Allora, and how do you think is important that the community participation for the network success?
I think a big piece of it is about like community agency and see I think this is kind of obvious to a lot of teams, but seeing the community as really like first class citizens to the team. Even I think like I the way I think about community in this space is kind of an extension of a core team contributing to some protocol. One thing we've poured a lot of energy into it with regard to agency is building up these community advocate programs, having kind of different community leaders contribute to the community, the growing of community in different cities or different parts of the world, creating this kind of like grassroots community from the bottom up in doing so. Another key consideration in building community, I think, in the decentralized AI space is that crypto people have increasingly become excited about AI. There's obviously a lot of crypto x AI hype. There's a lot of projects emerging at this intersection, but AI people are still like largely skeptical about crypto. And so I think it's really critical for this category to grow and this intersection to really flourish, for us to build that bridge from the AI industry and these AI first communities into crypto. And so we've spent a lot of time kind of iterating and trying to think through ways to do that and make crypto as accessible and welcoming of a place to AI people as sort of AI has been to crypto people. So yeah.
With the mainnet launch on the horizon, what are the key milestones and objectives Allora aims to achieve in the next 6 months?
I think a big one is continuing to build that bridge from the AI community to the crypto community, and onboarding sort of the top data science and AI talent onto the network. So really focusing on making it as easy as possible for model creators to bring new models to the network, as sort of accessible and inviting to those people to do so, et cetera. I think a big piece as well is going to be focusing on sort of immediately viable a kind of application verticals. From my position, I think crypto is largely a financial innovation, and I think most, if not all, of its product market fit has been found in these different financial domains. DeFi is obviously the biggest like application vertical within crypto, and I also think that AI in financial settings is much more mature. It's been sort of used in financial settings for decades at this point than some of the newer or seemingly more exciting kind of generative AI or like LLM type innovations. I think that stuff is really exciting and it's clearly going to be the future. But from a sort of business viability standpoint or an application viability standpoint, it's still in its nascency. It's still sort of in this toy stage. And so we're really focused on these kind of DeFi or DeFi adjacent types of applications to start. Obviously, with the prediction markets, both with these poly market type prediction markets and the pancake swap prediction markets, we're doing a bunch of things in the kind of like DeFi universe initially with regard to applications and sort of the demand side of the network. And so that's going to be a big focus of ours over the next 6 months for sure.
Speaking a little bit philosophically and broadly, AI and crypto have been major topics this year and last year. But how do you see this intersection evolving over the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting. I don't think we've seen such a synergistic merging of technologies in a long time. I think crypto has enabled us to build these decentralized, autonomous coordination mechanisms, not owned by any specific person, organization, country, anything like that. It's enabled coordination to happen in a programmatic and decentralized and autonomous way. And AI is this incredibly deflationary technology that maybe is on a path towards sentience. We'll see. But I think the way for AI to really flourish is for it to have this decentralized economic substrate by which to coordinate. I think that's really critical for one, AI's progression and keeping a rate of progression that is accelerating, but also for likely society's well-being. I think AI today is seen largely as a private good that's being iterated on in sort of private domains. And I don't think that's super dissimilar from how the internet was seen by different parties in the early days. I think there were attempts to sort of push this intranet vision and this private internet vision in the early days of the internet. And to look back at that time and think about where society would be today if that vision had prevailed, as opposed to the internet ultimately becoming this public good for information transfer, is pretty drastic. The difference of where we would be at the end of both of those vectors is immense. And I think this intersection of AI and crypto gives a tangible means of shifting our mental model of AI as a private good, as it is largely seen today, to that of a public utility, which I think is ultimately what it needs to be. It's sort of the world's it's the world's intelligence. It's what many critical functions in society is going to move over to. It's the next computing paradigm, etc. I think just as the internet needing to be a public utility for the well-being of society and the ultimate progression of society, I see AI as the same thing. It needs to be instantiated as a public utility that is owned by no one.
Personally, I use AI today more than I use Google search.
Me too. Yeah, I think a lot of people are in that boat. Yeah,
exactly. But can you recall a moment when AI really surprised you with its capabilities?
I think,
and you said this is it.
Yeah,
this is why AI is important.
I think really tangibly, actually, when we were shifting from building this crowdsourced appraisal platform to using AI to sort of bring efficiency or liquidity to these long tail markets, that was a pretty, I guess, not unexpected, but still profound experience. I think when you see how deflationary AI is, just how efficient or accurate it can be in these domains that are really esoteric or nebulous, it starts to open your eyes to the applicability of AI to just creating a more efficient world in general. I think that was a really tangible example for me, in seeing that we were maybe able to price some long tail assets via humans sort of accurately, to all of a sudden being able to create near real-time price feeds with ultra high levels of accuracy for millions and millions of assets on a regular basis was sort of the eye-opening thing for me, and a real step forward mentally or conceptually, I guess, in realizing what a world where anything that can be financialized will be financialized can exist.
I think the tagline for today is AI is deflationary.
That's right. AI is very deflationary.
If you could ask an advanced AI one question about the future, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a tough question. I would ask when it thinks it achieves sentience, or if it thinks it has achieved sentience. I think like this idea of AGI and like self-aware AI is obviously a very hot topic. It's a very controversial topic, and I'm curious to understand if that is something that can even be achieved, if we even kind of understand sentience enough to realize an AI that can be sentient, if that's like a possibility or not.
This is the last question, and it's a little bit personal. What advice would you offer to young builders in the AI industry and founders just starting out?
Yeah, I think what's more important than almost anything is having conviction in your intuition or your perspective of the world. I think this is an incredibly reflexive industry, crypto anyway. Most industries are highly reflexive though. And there's always going to be a flavor of the month. There's always going to be a consensus view on something. And in that kind of environment, it can be difficult to uphold conviction on less consensus views. Um, and I think it's really critical to reach your conclusions from as sort of first principles of a process as possible, and sort of drown out the noise to at least a productive degree to be able to make non-consensus decisions that maybe go against the tide, because consensus is always going to be changing. And I think it's more important to base decisions around sort of the direction you're moving in, the priorities you're settling on, etc., in a way that drowns that out as much as possible. Obviously, there's some data to be inferred to be inferred from the crowd and what consensus is at any given time, but I think it's useful as just a single data point of many, as opposed to being what dictates people's decisions. Because if you're following consensus and that's what's influencing your decision making more than anything, then you're going to be shifting your priorities on a monthly, quarterly basis. So I think it's about conviction and your intuition and your perspective of the world.
What's the best city to live in as a young builder or founder right now as a crypto and AI aficionado?
The best city?
Yes.
I love New York. I'm in New York. I think the New York crypto space has grown a lot over the past few years. So I like New York. New York would be my
Yeah,
answer.
I think at some point Dubai was the talk of the space, but right now New York is kind of catching up.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think there's a lot of AI activity happening in San Francisco as well. But for crypto, it feels like New York is a real hub.
Thank you very much, Nick. That brings us to the end of our conversation. It's been fascinating to hear about your journey and the innovative work happening at Allora. The intersection of AI and crypto is clearly opening up exciting new possibilities, and we're eager to see how it all unfolds. Good night and good luck.
Thank you.